Hello everybody, this is The Last Raider, and we are back with another video. This time in the movie The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, which has, it seems like it's going, I'm pretty sure at some point in time, Critical Drinker is going to come up and tell us and do an episode on this called the, Development Hell, where he talks about how all the stuff that went wrong to make like a movie, only this is going to be what it all took to make a pretty mediocre movie. Because the movie has gone through a lot of problems with not just the fans, but behind the scenes. There's rumors that people have gotten pregnant. There's rumors that Robert Pattinson doesn't want to do like any physical work. He doesn't want to do any weightlifting, any training whatsoever. There's also been accidents on set, and the vehicles and the suit. It looks like a cosplay more. I mean, just not even a very good cosplay. The vehicle looks like they just took some kind of, what is it? One of those cheap redneck race cars and just kind of amped it up a little bit, made it more rednecky. So I was expecting, when it's Batman, you expect a certain type of technological advancement. That's why everyone liked the idea of the tumbler vehicle in the Batman and the, the Batman series with Christian Bale, the Dark Knight series. Everyone enjoyed that because it looked very much like high-tech stuff that Bruce Wayne would have under his belt. Okay. He's made weapons. He's made all this stuff, and Bruce Wayne would have all this insane tech at his disposal to, bring out and use. I think in the TV series, The Batman, the best line about Batman and his equipment was one girl was talking about, one female detective, she was talking about, the Batman has this custom shoe print, custom tire tread. And the other guy, that detective that's with him, who's actually friends with Bruce Wayne, looks at her and says, so the Bat's got resources. That's Batman. He's got resources. But here we're talking about Catwoman. And if any of y'all know anything about Catwoman, there's a certain appeal to Catwoman that guys have, okay? She's basically a cat burglar, and it's sort of like, okay, cat burglar, we'll make it a woman, call her Catwoman. She's a really good thief, does things cat themed. I think in the TSA Batman series, there was actually a scene where one of the mobsters is trying to catch her, and he jumps up into a ventilator or vent shaft, and he's crawling around in there, and he suddenly goes, pulls back, and he's got a couple of cat-shaped caltrops in his arm, which I thought, those are actually pretty cool. We never saw those ever again. Those were awesome. Those would probably sell if somebody could make a few of them out of steel. There'd probably be something to sell. Anyway, like I said, there's a certain look to Catwoman. There's a certain way Catwoman operates that is expected in the comic books. And the best way to do a comic movie, which I've said plenty of times, look at the worst comic book movies that have ever been made. Look at the best comic book movies ever made. Look at the best movies that are based on books and the worst movies that are based off books. Two movies that came out during this time, and these are the examples, would be Lord of the Rings and Sahara. Lord of the Rings worked because if you look through everything going on through the book, through the development of the movie, they were telling everyone, we stayed as true as we could to this. We tried to make it as fantastic, but kind of borderlined it as more of a reasonable fantasy, not just so out there. They tried to strike a balance with the fans. Whereas with Sahara, Matthew McConaughey was the guy picked to be Dirk Pitt. But if you ever read the Dirk Pitt series, you would find that Dirk Pitt is not a guy with long, shaggy hair or anything else. He's kind of a clean-cut military guy. He's not slow speaking. He's kind of an average speaking individual, but he's learned in what he's doing, and he's very charismatic. He's very flirtatious. So, Lord of the Rings did very good. Sahara, so-so. It's a good action movie if you're going in there and not expecting it to be Dirk Pitt. That being said, we've got right now, it appears that the Batman movie is going to go the direction of the Sahara movie and not the direction of Lord of the Rings, which is staying true to the fandom and giving the fans what they have looked at for years. And it comes up right here with Batman actress Zoe Kravitz doesn't want Catwoman fetishized or stereotyped. Okay. Continuing on here. Robert Patterson and director Matt Reeves have promised in so many words the Batman will be different and so will the DC Pictures variant of Selina Kyle and Catwoman. And it's not that this chick isn't bad looking. I mean, she would make a good Catwoman. There are two variations of Catwoman. One, she's a little bit darker skinned. The other one, she's kind of a lighter skinned chick. So I think in the earlier versions, Selina Kyle was almost brown head, was a brunette. And then I think in the TSA, she's like a blonde or something. And then in later comic books, she's a little bit darker skin, almost a Latino look. Don't have a problem with this at all. I mean, women are women. You got to be a racist if you don't like a hot chick just because of skin color, okay? You're kind of racist. But this is coming from a guy that marries outside of his own race, so I don't have a problem with it. But looking at her here in the X-Men movie right here in this one picture, she does have the look of being a pretty good-looking chick. If you were to put her in a cat suit, she could pull it off, obviously. Continuing on here, though. Oh, what the hell? Okay, new phone. Did not know I had that feature. The star in those roles this time, Zoe Kravitz, certainly wants to bring a unique approach, and though it's a little late for production on the anticipated picture, she has conditions for how her Selina will be treated and received by fans. I love how they think that she has any control over the fans. This shows you just how far Hollywood has come. From a company of the customer is always right to now we have to tell the customer that they're evil and give them what they need, what we think they need. Okay, here we go. Kravitz, stepdaughter of Aquaman actor Jason Momoa, doesn't want to see her Catwoman fetishized or turned into a stereotype. Clearly, she has never heard of the Rule of 34. But we'll continue. Talking to another magazine about her prep and research for the role, she admits, first off, I've read some of the comics now, but I wasn't a comic head or anything. Okay, full stop. There is a term for this, and I mean this as respectfully as I can. It's called a fake geek girl, okay? Or a fake geek. Someone who goes in, reads a few books, and thinks they're an expert on something. They've got enough knowledge. Or basically, they're those kind of people that go in there and buy like the encyclopedia on a character. And the encyclopedia doesn't have near the amount of stories in it. And it just an encyclopedia on like Batman or Superman or even worse, the Marvel encyclopedia. I have actually heard people in conversations who I know who were never fans of Marvel. And you can tell this because sometimes they will up and quote a paragraph from the Marvel encyclopedia. I have seen that happen before in some comic shops. And it is not that they're not fans. They're not being mean about it. Sometimes people, they just want to look like they have some knowledge. They don't want to be left out. And there's nothing wrong with not being knowledgeable. I like the Conan comics. I'm trying to build a Conan collection right now. And I've got a pretty good chunk of Conan comics. I'll have to put that on Twitter and show y'all the Conan collection I've currently gotten, because it's taken some time to find some good books because I don't have a list of what I don't have. It's harder to find the earlier series after, I think it's like, actually, no, I know where I can get some earlier ones, but it's going to take time and money to get them. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is you've got an actress who's making demands of the character who apparently has not read enough comic books on the character or done enough stuff on the character to recognize that the character is a lot deeper than just sex. This is kind of a stereotypical response. Another one I've said before is some people will say that, well, manga's cartoon porn because the Japanese are a little bit more, they don't have as many limitations on sexuality in Japanese culture. And it's not a hypersexualization thing. It's just, you've got to remember you're dealing with a culture that has public bathroom or public bathhouses, not bathrooms, a public bathhouse. So if you're going to go take a bath somewhere, and part of the reason this is, if you play Ghost of Tsushima, is probably the best example I can think of this, is there were a lot of hot springs in Japan. There are tons of them because it's a volcanic island, pretty much like Honolulu. And so they have a lot of hot springs. And so you wanted a good warm bath, you went to the hot spring. Well, everybody went to the hot spring at one time, and they would separate men and women from each other. And, everybody, all the men took a bath together, all the women took a bath together. And the Japanese don't have a problem with nudity as much as we do in the West, because there's less restrictions on it in their culture. And that's just a cultural thing. That being said, there's this big stereotypical thing with comic books that mistakens it's kind of like when a person who doesn't understand Greek art goes into a Greek art exhibit and they see the nude paintings and like, people back then were just so perverse. And it's not that they're perverse. It's that in Greek artistry and Italian artistry, back in the Renaissance, people preferred they were trying to get the ultimate beautiful form. You have to remember, these were artists who were doing what they believed was competing with the gods. So when they saw a beautiful woman, they tried to sculpt her out of marble. They were attempting to capture that woman's beauty for eternity. And so they would try to get the most carnal form of the beauty. So that woman would be immortalized forever in marble. People who don't understand that, kind of idiots. Uncultured is what we call them in the manga community. But continuing on. As she continued, Kravets detailed how she looked at playing Catwoman and what her thought process was in making Selena more realistic as a woman. Okay, when I see these words together, realistic woman, no, a PTSD kind of flies in. No, you do not want a realistic woman in there, because this is not realism. This is fantasy. It is there specifically to entertain. And this is something I will never understand why Hollywood thinks this is a good idea. Now, you can make things... There is nothing wrong with a little bit of realism to make the world seem more believable. But when you're reaching a point where you're saying, well, we want things to be realistic, the problem is Hollywood wants to go so realistic. They do things in extremes. They either go extremely fantasized or they go extremely realistic. The problem is with comic book movies, with most types of entertainment, depending on where you are with that movie, you are going to have to strike a balance based on that movie. If you have a movie that's, doesn't have fantastic things happening or anything else, and it has some supernatural stuff happening that wouldn't happen in real life, as a small thing, you're probably going to steer more towards realism. If you're doing something like Star Wars, you're probably really going to push your way to fantasy. Okay, Star Trek probably falls somewhere in the middle of that category. Stargate falls a little bit further to realism, but it's still got a lot of fantastic elements within it. But they're not as pronounced because you're dealing with a world that's already established. Star Trek is dealing with the kind of the future. Star Wars is just a fantastic time frame, which could have been years ago. Even in, especially from the beginning of Star Wars, when the first credit thing rolls off into space, it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, meaning this is something that's possibly happened millennia ago. We don't know. But the idea that you're going to go in here and do this, I hate it when Hollywood gets a hold of something, because like I said, it's either one of two extremes. They either go so far fantasy that it's unbelievable, or they go so far realistic that it's jarring and it doesn't work properly. And with comics, you're probably going to comic book movies, you probably want to strike somewhere right about in between. You want a realistic world that grounds the character, but you don't want them to be so realistic that they lose the fantastic element. And this is what she's apparently not understanding here. It doesn't make for a good movie. It's one of the things DC has been having trouble with, They keep going really good. They go really far realistic. They also don't have a firm grasp on writing stories, except Zack Snyder, who seems to be able to write a damn good one with the Snyder Cut. But continuing on, I also tried to think about the role, not as Catwoman, but as a woman. How does this make me feel? She wondered. Well, it's not how you feel, because you are acting. And if you, probably one of the best actors you're going to find is Daniel Day-Lewis. And I know I'm running off on tangents, but there is so much to unpack with this whole statement with Catwoman. But if you ever listen to, like, I think it's Daniel Day-Lewis who did Last of the Mohicans. He's done a whole lot of other stuff. Daniel Day-Lewis, if you ever watch, he doesn't do a whole lot of movies real fast, because part of his acting method, he becomes a completely different person. And it takes him almost a full year to come back out of character. He's so far into it. That's an actual thing. That's dedication. That is dedication, okay? That's why Daniel Day-Lewis makes some big bucks. Whenever he's in a movie, what is it? Just name a Daniel Day-Lewis movie that you've seen him star in. And you will sit back and say, yeah, you know, he is a completely different person in almost every single one of them. The only thing you can recognize Daniel Day-Lewis is with his face. That's the only recognition. If you were to watch Last of the Mohicans and watch, I don't think it's Country for Old Men. It's the one where he's an oil tycoon and he's talking about, I drink up all of your milkshake. They are two completely different people, but they've got the same damn face. And it's freaky sometimes, but it's an amazing method of acting in which he becomes a character. So I would disagree with her right now. She's failing what I would consider a cardinal rule of acting, which is, it is not you. You are the character. It's the character. It's not you. You have to become a character. That's what a good moniker of an actor is. I've said this plenty of times. Actors are paid professional liars. Their job is to convince the audience that they are someone else. So it's not you that you're portraying to the audience. It is the character. And you have to somehow use your skills in acting to portray that character to the audience in a believable fashion that they think it is that character. And this is another problem with, I want to say, comic book movies is, and it's something that Marvel has done well and has done really bad. A perfect example of this would be Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. Best version of Iron Man did that right off the bat. First start, perfect, right off the bat. But take Incredible Hulk. We have gone through, I want to say, 3 actors before reaching the guy. I think it's Rob Defoe or something like that. It may be his name. I don't remember. But he is, and politics aside, he is probably the best guy to play Bruce Banner. He's not a hulking big guy. He's kind of dorky, and man, they did this with Ed Norton, had the physique. The guy they had before, I don't know who he was, but he did not have the physique of Bruce Banner, and he did not have what you would consider the mentality of Bruce Banner. So it was a real different. It took some time to get the actor for the role that was necessary who could portray the character. And the problem isn't like with another movie where you're like, okay, this is the type of character we got. You've got to make it other. There's a little bit more play with it, with the actor. The problem with a comic book character is you've got, in some instances with Catwoman, you've got 80-something plus years of Catwoman. Okay? No one in the world doesn't know who Catwoman is. So if you get an actress coming in there trying to screw with what the character is, it's going to jar the audience and they're not going to recognize it. They're going to reject it. It's like deer hunting, okay? If you're too fast and you push too hard or too fast through the woods and make a little too much noise, you're going to scare the deer away. So you got to lure them in a little bit. Anyway, she wondered, how are we approaching this? And how are we making sure we're not fetishizing or creating a stereotype? I knew I needed to be a real person. Here's the problem, darling. Again, Rule 34. Okay? Rule 34. If you do not know what that is, then I cannot help you. Okay? There is no force on the internet, say God himself, that can override Rule 34. Okay? I'm not saying it's unsinkable, but I'm saying it's going to take powers beyond that of man's comprehension to stop Rule 34 from happening. So you might as well just get ready. My wife was saying the other day, we were talking about a character I was thinking about putting in I'm trying to write it into a comic book. I'm looking up scripts right now, trying to study how to write this to where I can put it into a comic book. And she goes, it's a great concept you've got. It's really out there. It's a combination of some old movies. She said, but people are going to fetishize this when you get on the internet. I said, yes, I'm fully aware of Rule 34 and I have accepted the consequences of that. As an artist, there's no way I can stop it. I'm just not even going to try. I'm going to sit back. If it gets big and I have fans and I'm at Comic-Con and someone brings up their Rule 34 fetishization, I'm going, that's an interesting take. You are very talented. You are very talented. That's a very interesting take. You should start your own comic, and I'm just going to let him go. That's all I can do. Try to steer him into the right direction. That's all I can really do at this point. But continuing on. Cravette sounds like she was trying to personalize her part, which isn't totally bad when an actor is putting a fresh spin on things. However, she is opening herself up to charges she's not reading enough of the source material or consulting other media such as Batman the Animated Series, which, as with every character in it, has one of the best portrayals of Catwoman in history. This is true. Borrowing heavily from the work of Denny O'Neil, Batman TAS made Catwoman sultry, dangerous, as well as deep. Selina found herself in various situations, including a mutation into a werecat in the episode Tiger Tiger. And that's a really good episode because she is basically kidnapped by a guy who's basically Dr. Moreau, who is splicing animal DNA with human DNA, which the amazing thing is the continuity of the animated series is that later on, Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, years in the future, ends up having to fight a group of people called splicers who do basically the same thing. They have a more instantaneous variation of the genetic splicing that this guy's doing. And so splicers eventually come back later in life for Terry McGinnis when Batman's an old man. But in there, let's look at this because it's actually pretty cute. We got Selina Kyle. She gets captured. And so there's this giant werecat dude who wants a mate, basically. He wants love. Is what he wants. He thinks he wants a mate, but what he really wants is love. And while he's doing this, he finally turns against his master. Batman gets his butt handed to him. It is an amazing episode. Batman's down to the point where he can't do anything. And so Selina Kyle has to, basically, she educates him on what this big werecat guy, she educates him on what love is. In the end, he turns against his master. He ends up helping Batman and saving Selina Kyle. And then when he's all said and done, he lets Selina go because he realizes what he wants, he cannot get from Selina Kyle. And he's reasonable. The character, if this was done in modern audiences today, he would be a muscle-bound incel who would not take no for an answer, and they'd have to kill him. The episode is extremely deep. Any episode from Batman the Animated Series is a good episode. You just have to go watch it. Amazing writing that has influenced TV shows for generations afterward. And a lot of different TV shows were just affected by this. A lot of your comic book TV shows on the CW are trying desperately to redo what they did back then and can't do it. Danny O'Neil was an amazing writer. Continuing on, though. It was the 90s. Catwoman hasn't been stereotyped or irreversibly fetishized in many years, although her curves and beauty in a tight outfit are part of her appeal. During the pandemic lockdowns last year, Kravitz alluded to the shape she had to be in, while also revealing she wears a catsuit in The Batman. If audience members tap into her portrayal or costume through cosplay or fan art in a fetishized or suggestive way, that's out of her hands. And yeah, okay, so she understands Rule 34 here, okay? I don't know how you think that's going to, but this is Hollywood again. They want to seem better than everyone else. And then Harvey Weinstein rears his ugly head. It's like, yeah, you're not better than we are, okay? You people, number one, you people are doing racist shit over there. You're burning down most of your state half the time, which is producing a god-awful amount of carbon emissions, way more than my state is, because the little bit of timbering that we do actually stops it. We actually had some firefighters go over and volunteer in California, and this has nothing to do with it, but it's just a side note of me explaining how bad the state is right now. They went over there with the intent of helping people. They come back and said, we don't want to volunteer over there anymore because it's a lost cause. And they said, it's not because it's not worth it to save the people. They said it's a lost cause because these fires are going to start back again. One guy said they were out there fighting a fire, moved people to a safe zone. Winds kicked up. One of the power lines sparked and started another fire right next to him. And they had to re-evacuate everyone they had evacuated out again, a second time. They said the problems with forest fires over there in that state, and this is just forest fires. This is not the water problems they've got. This is not the pollution problems that they've got. This is not the civil rights problems that they got, or the fact that they've got disease and everything else in the cities, the poop maps and all that. He said it's just the fact of the state is so mismanaged by the government that it's a lost cause to go in there, save people, and hope it's going to make a difference. The only thing you're doing is prolonging suffering at that point. And it's not that, he said, it's not that we don't want to save people. They said, we'll go over there and save people, but it's with the understanding that we're probably going to be back there next year to save the very same group of people because nobody in government will fix something. After that tangent, Hollywood's kind of dumb. But continuing on. Oh, well, I guess that's the end of it. Kravitz could always tell a segment of the population not to go see her movie, but she risks them taking her up on that. And that's the truth. The last thing you want to do, because comic book goers have kind of proven to Hollywood, if you tell them not to go see something or you tell them it's not for you, they will oblige you on it. They will go, oh yeah, okay, fine. You tell me I'm not supposed to go watch it? Yeah, I won't go watch it. I'll put my money in Gunpla, which I'm actually planning on doing that recently. I got birthday money and I found a master grade heavy arms and I've been dying to put together. I never thought I would find it, and I finally found one. I'm going to have to get that and get some tools to go with it, but so I can make it look good when I get finished. But other than that, yeah, this whole thing, and I hate to be like this, but it's kind of like Ethan Van Sciver says, it's a war on good-looking guys. It's a war on boys. It's a war on women just as much as a war on boys. We don't want women looking like women because the people that are in charge of Hollywood don't look like women. They don't look like masculine men. They don't look like feminine women. And so they want women to look fat and dumpy. They don't want them to be fetishized. As I said before, this is the same group of people that spawned Harvey Weinstein for years and covered up his antics. And no one in Hollywood said a thing about it. They just let it happen. They're telling you they don't want you to fetishize the character. Oh, we really can't stop you from fetishizing Catwoman, but we don't want you to fetishize her. Even though we've got Harvey Weinstein sticking something in every woman just so she can get a job. Kind of reminds you of Joe Biden. But anyway, tell me what y'all think in the comments about them talking about non-fetishizing Catwoman, because here's the thing. Actually, I'll leave on this note. Catwoman is the only character that I know of that's ever been able to get one over on Batman and not directly fight him. Okay? There's a lot of women that can take Batman down. I mean, even Lady Shiva can put the beat down on Batman. She is just insane when it comes to martial arts. But Catwoman, I think the best example of Catwoman's sexuality being used is with Michelle Pfeiffer in the second Batman movie, where Batman finds her up on like a building, and she starts, talking to him and being nice and gets in real close to Batman, which, if you know martial arts, is the cardinal rule. You keep people away from you as best you can. She gets in real close to Batman, and the moment Michael Keaton cracks a smile, she takes her claws and just digs them right into the side of his abdomen and then just starts clawing the shit out of him. To the point he has to toss some like he has to hit her with like a napalm grenade or something to get her off him. She falls off the building into a dirt truck, and she's really pissed off when she hits it. And Batman's just like, he's next one, he's in there and he's pulling claws out of her claws are broken off. He's pulling them out of his abdomen, trying to get them out. Like, look at this, like, how did this happen? How did I get here? I am Batman. I'm smarter than this. But anyway, tell me what y'all think in the comments about about Hollywood's need to desexualize every female in comics. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And as always, stay safe, stay frosty. See you guys next video. Bye-bye now.